Okay, hi guys, we're back at the Fiesta, and unfortunately, here's an update, and unfortunately it's not the update I was hoping to give you, and it is still leaking. It's not as bad, so definitely addressed something, but and I can tell it's not as bad because having driven on roads with standing water, apologies if there's wind noise here, I'm trying to kind of shield the microphone. Having driven on standing water of a level that I had before when water was getting into the bike, nothing was getting in, but we had a couple of days of really horrendous downpours, like really throwing it down, and water was getting in probably to about the same level, maybe a little less than previously, so there's still certainly something getting in somewhere. Now, as you can see, I've taken a pick and I've cleaned out these, and as you can see there's a definite huge gap. Sorry, hugely noisy horse trailer going past. Big gap there, as you can see. And then on the right hand side, this one's kind of a bit more difficult. I don't know if you'll be able to see it because I've kind of scraped the sealant, but there was a crack on this section coming down here, which looked like a potential source of leaks. Now you can see I've got bits of paper wedged all around the place here. This is because I started filming this and it started spitting with rain, and infuriatingly, and I was just covering what I was going to do, but essentially I have got some RTV silicone down there which has just arrived this morning, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to seal along here, I'm going to seal around here, I'm going to seal around the edges of these just in case, essentially anywhere down here where water is potentially likely to go. I've cleaned all down these so I'd be able to see if any water tracks are getting through here. There was no evidence of that when I took them off both sides. There's water around them at the moment because, as I said, started spitting with rain. When I realised it wasn't going to let up quickly, I popped the lights back in roughly, which are down there, as you can see. It needs drying down again. So I'm going to go ahead and do that both sides, and let that dry off and cure, and then keep a check on it again and see if there's any more water ingress, and hopefully by process of elimination, by working through the whole lot, I should hopefully prevent it and stop it completely. This is going to be short and sweet because it's freezing out here. I can barely feel my fingers, but so far I've run a seam of sealer around both sides of there, as you can see, and that's gone right the way up into the seam where the boot seal sits. So I'm going to leave that to go off for about 10 or 15 minutes before I put that seal, press the seal back on, because obviously I don't want that to be a problem, or tear any of it or what have you. So I've got a little bit of a problem there in the water channel. I need to try and stop that and put a bit more up there. So I've still got the others to do, and I'll grab a quick update shot of that before I complete that. Last update for the moment. These seams either side, as you can see, are done. These down here I've gone right around the outside and the inside of the nylon insert as well, top and bottom, and then round the outside of these. I will put a little bit of silicone grease on the rubber and on the pin for insertion, just to make that a bit easier for future insertion and removal. Same with these over here, as you can see, and same with these up here as well. Going right the way around. It's still freezing. My fingers are still unbelievably numb. I need to leave that another few minutes before I can push those seals back on, because I don't want to kind of disturb the sealant down there more than I have to. But we're here again. This short little update is actually going to become one of the longest updates in the history of videos ever. I'm not 100% delighted with this. I'm not 100% delighted with this RTV silicone I got off eBay. It's not the best. There's a couple of little cracks showing in this, although I don't think this is the problem anymore. I mean, as you can see, I've gone around various areas, as well as doing the bits behind the bumper. As mentioned, there has been a little improvement, but water is still getting in. Now, I was fortunate, I guess you could say, enough to have been able to drive the other day from an area that had been dry with no rain, where the boot was dry, through an area where there was standing water. So I got plenty of puddles to go through where it sprayed water up and what have you, and the boot remained dry. So I'm fairly convinced that that's now not the problem. There's only one other place I can think of at the moment, which is the area behind the lights. And I have a suspicion, because it's coming in when it's raining, I have a suspicion it's coming down here past the seals and in through this way on both sides. This one being slightly worse, but this one also getting a little bit in. And I have down there, as you can see, a wad of paper towel just sort of shoved in there, and likewise on this side to try and capture any water coming in and stop it spreading, as well as the towels at the front there to stop it going under the seat, because I had to put the seat back in, having gone on holiday recently. Bit of a nuisance. The only obvious area now is this, and if it's not that, which I'm really hoping it is, I'm going to have to look at removing these strips. I don't know how they're fitted in, but I don't know if there's maybe a seam under there. I'm hoping I don't have to go down that route, because I really don't want to have to do that. So what's next is rear lights off again, and I'm going to fashion some kind of cover to go over the holes and still allow the plug for the lights to come through and the bolt that passes through that's secured on the back. And I'll be back in a second when I've kind of gotten to that stage and show you what I mean. Alright, so here's the lights removed again, and we have got 4 large holes. That one and that one can be blanked off completely, pretty much technically I suppose as I did with the ones under the bumper there. That one will need, of course, a hole of some description for this to pass through. Does that plug bit to stick through? It looks like it kind of does a little bit, and that is going to be tricky. I'm not sure how I'm going to tackle that one yet. And then this one, of course, is where the bolt passes through, which is then secured by the plastic thing from underneath. Technically speaking, I could remove that and just have it held in solely by the 2 Torx bolts, top and bottom. However, I'm not 100% ecstatic about that idea, because it's potentially going to allow it to flex there where these are just pushed in. So I would like to retain that securing there. So I'm going to have a little think about how I do that, especially that, because if that's going to push back in, I need to try and get up inside there and see how far that pushes back in, because I'm going to have to allow some kind of give in there, or some better way of sealing that. That's going to be tricky. I'll get back on that one. Okay, so I have spent the last couple of hours sitting with a template that I'd cut out to this shape, looking at plastic sheets, fitting and checking underneath and everything. Now the biggest problem I've got, this one's not so bad, because it's you can seal around that relatively easily. The biggest problem I've got is this actually sits about there, which means that the bit that it plugs into also protrudes into that hole. Now if it sat out here, you could just seal around these wires, and that would need something flexible. So I was thinking initially about a rubber sheet and sealing around here, so I'd seal the whole thing underneath. The problem then is you've got to somehow seal around that, and then if water comes down, it's going to gather into and around this, which potentially means you're going to get wire into the connector. If you seal around the actual square section of the light, it's likely to seep into there and cause a problem further down the line. You don't really want to waterlog your electrical connectors. So What I'm going to do first and foremost, what I'm probably going to end up buying some replacement seals, but what I'm going to do first is just give these a good thick layer of sealant, and I'm going to use the stuff that I've got at the moment, so I'm not 100% happy with it, but it's what I've got at the moment. And if this kind of works okay, I will look at getting some new seals or getting some more flexible silicone sealer. But essentially I'm going to try and put a thickish layer on these, let it set up a little bit and then fit them, and but not tightly, fit them relatively loosely, then give them 24 hours and then tighten them up to sort of squish it down a little bit. Righto, so this is what I've got at the moment. Reasonably thick, gloopy string raised up, as you can see, which hopefully will form a seal once that is pressed into here. So it's going to have to be carefully manoeuvred into place, snap this in and then kind of lower it gently into place. I will then sort of loosely fit these two screws, top and bottom and top, torque screws, bolts, whatever you want to call them, and then very loosely fit on the plastic securing bit that secures through here. And then I'm going to do the other one first, so that gives them a few minutes to kind of go off a little bit, because I don't want them too liquid just now, and I want to make sure that when I secure them down it's squishing them adequately. This one probably shows slightly better because I did get a better even squeeze of the tube all the way around, and as you can see that's actually fairly thick. So I'm quite hopeful that that's going to work. As I say, I'm just going to give it a few minutes to start going off a little bit, and then very carefully fit them, starting with the right hand side one because that's the one that I put the sealant on first. So hopefully this is going to be the final part of the Fiesta with the leaking boot saga. I'm actually at a point now where I'm confident enough that I can remove the towels that I've got down there and put these inner liners back in place and put the carpet back in, which is nice. But as you can see, hopefully down there I've got paper sort of lining all the way across there, various tools that I've been using in the meantime. And then down here I've got a couple of bits of paper towel which I've been keeping a check on, and so far these have been staying dry. Now prior to this little bit of the video, there will hopefully be all the other bits that I've shown you that I've done so far. So what have I done to actually get to this point? It was just one more thing, and it was, as previously mentioned, related to the rear lights. What I've ended up doing is buying a pair of genuine Ford rear light replacement seals. The old ones looked like over time they'd kind of folded in, so I think, I'm fairly sure, given what I've seen just now and everything else, that's where the problem, obviously the secondary problem has been. Because, as mentioned previously, I do genuinely think these vents behind the bumper were an initial problem as well. Now, because the water ingress was less than it was previously, it was kind of swimming in the boot well before, whereas now it just tends to be coming in the corners. So yes, a pair of genuine Ford OEM replacement seals. I think they were only something like £7 per side. Really not bad. They've literally just been push fitted into place. They're not a single loop. They meet in the middle. They're separated. So I've fitted that part at the bottom. I've not actually used any silicone or anything like that. I've tightened it down. Initially I didn't tighten it very much, and I did still get a little bit of seepage in when I drove it during the rain. So I tightened it down further. I didn't really crank down tight on it, but up sort of behind here where you can get the plastic, where the plastic bung is that you tighten down, I tightened that down. so it was very snug, and then I tightened these two Torx screws down, so again, so they were snug but not really cranked down, because these are after all just going into plastic bungs which plug into the body. Since that point, I've left it, it's probably been 2, 3, maybe 3 weeks since I did that, because initially we had a lot of dry weather, very unusual for here, although technically we're kind of in the summery sort of part of the year. But we had about a week solid of really lovely dry sunshiny weather, which was nice, but useless for testing this. But then we've had 2 weeks of very on and off rain, and it's in standing rain where it's been coming down quite heavily, and it's been driven in fairly heavily driving rain, and it's also been driven through quite a number of puddles with lots of standing water this last week, which, while it's not the most pleasant to drive in, was perfect for testing. And every time I've parked up and checked these corners, I mean, you can see there the tide mark at the bumper where the water obviously pools and has collected and gone through these drain holes here. So you can see there's been quite a bit washing down. But every time I've checked it, those pieces of paper in the corner have been dry, and the paper at the bottom of the boot floor has been dry also. So here's hoping, fingers crossed, that that's actually sorted now, and hopefully this will be the last update on that. So that's the boot back together, looking like a boot, actually neat, everything tucked away, all this bit of carpeting tucked under here and this bit tucked under here, and all that looking quite respectable. This bit just pops up, it's got two little poppers down here and here, and then this clips up, the carpet bits slip underneath, and then this rubber lower where the boot seal slips on. But that, as you can see, looks considerably neater. So now I can throw my bare essentials in there. Looking at the gap at the front of there, what I am going to do is chuck the towels back in there, because they take up next to no room, and a just in case measure. And of course I will be checking on this after I've gone out in sort of heavy rain, and I've noticed that I can still lift the carpet area, and I can just squeeze my hand without having to lift these up. I can squeeze my hand under there and actually feel to see if the paper towels are wet, which I'm going to leave in place on both sides, and just again, as you can see, kind of lift that up there. You can get your hand in and feel to see if they're dry or not, so that's good. It means I don't need to have to leave those out, because although it didn't really hinder using the boot, it just kind of looks like it takes up so much of the boot, because they were all closed in and sort of pulled right out, and it looked like it took so much of the boot space. In conclusion, what can we take from this? The main thing that we can take from this is that the leaks into a Mk7 Fiesta boot are not ever from one specific place. That's not a massive amount of help for somebody who's looking for a quick fix, sadly, and I was hoping for a relatively quick and easy fix, and I thought I'd found it with the vents behind the bumper. But it seems like they could come from all manner of places. I've heard people say that they've resealed all around the edges with the seam sealer, because it's actually been spraying up and coming in through there, and I've no reason to doubt that. I've heard people say it's coming through their through the vents behind the bumper, which is obviously a bit that I've addressed, and apparently when these are undersealed, it can actually damage the rubber flaps, which help seal against the sort of splashback of water. So that makes sense, that water's just going to spray straight up into them, obviously. So again, I'm no reason to dispute that. I've heard the rear light seals, which was definitely the secondary concern of mine. I've heard these bits here, which obviously I've gone over with the seam sealant on both sides, and some people even saying that they've actually lifted this strip, and a good sort of 6 inches up here there's been cracks in the sealer that they've resealed down there. But the long and short of it is, there is no quick easy fix and guaranteed one place that it's coming in. If you have one with a sunroof, apparently that can be an area where leaks can come and they can actually run back and into the boot through the box sections as well. So apologies that I wasn't able to give you a definitive answer as to yes, this is definitely where water comes in, but at least it's given you a ream of things to check if you're having this problem, and hopefully you will be able to solve it. But definitely worth doing. I got them from eBay, from an official Ford store on eBay. I think they were £7 per side, and it was official genuine Ford. It actually came in the Ford bags with the Ford stamp, the part number and all the kit and caboodle with the vacuum sealed bags. And whether that works better than any kind of aftermarket, whether OEM's better than aftermarket, I don't know, but for the cost I thought I might as well get that rather than try and save a couple of quid on a pair of aftermarket ones, which might have left me in the same predicament and then still chasing my tail thinking it was coming in from somewhere else, you know. So definitely worth giving that a try. But I'm a bit happier now. I've got everything back in the boot and it actually looks half decent and neat and respectable. So now I just need to get my bits and pieces back in there that I need in there, and I will be keeping an update. If anything reoccurs, I will post an update video explaining what's what. I'm hoping it's going to stay dry, but certainly as we get closer towards autumn and winter, we will have much more rain up here in Scotland, and potholes and standing water have been a problem here since the last pick a number of years. So there's not going to be a shortage of water spraying up and around this, so we'll see how we go from there. Hopefully this has been helpful, although it's not giving you a definitive answer, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.